Okay, so we are in the homepage of the Trimble Unity Construct platform, and therein you will have the opportunity to either go to the processes tabs with a specific project in mind. We are going to go into a test project for this particular exercise, and we are going to choose process testing. In your case, you will be utilizing the specific project that was generated through the project initiation request or PIR process. And then once you're in the project details page, you will see on the left-hand side a project menu. Therein, you can select the process module. The process module will take you to a new screen that identifies any active processes for that particular project. For the work order process, which we're designating the AE work order process or AEWO, you will go ahead and start the process in the upper right-hand corner and select the AEWO option to start. This is the beginner screen, and this screen is actually purposed for the project manager design to complete and initiate the work order process. There are options to save the draft should there be additional information that you don't have on hand at the time, but each item that has an asterisk is required, and any item that you want to add additional information, there is an add button to populate the new user information table, as well as for the funding information, there's an add button. Prior to starting, I just want to indicate that there is a specific process that each individual will follow in terms of their portion of the activity. I would like to show you that process before we dive into the AEWO work order process for the testing. So as an administrator, I have the opportunity to create the process. And what I'm going to show you now is the workflow. And in that workflow, it identifies all the opportunities and tasks that need to be completed by each member in order for the process to be complete and implemented. So this is the formal work order process that was developed in Trimble. And as I mentioned, the start is where the design project manager will enter all the documentation and information for the work order to start. Therein, there will be a conditional to be considered. If this project for the firm is new to the Trimble system as well as to the city of Tampa, they're going to want, they being the project manager, are going to want to check to see if the firm in fact has an account in Trimble so that for future they can invoice against the project and any other activities that might be active in Trimble. So the condition will consider if they already have an account. If they do not, it will go to the eBuilder admin team for the development of the account for the respective users of that firm. Once the accounts are built, the documentation that was uploaded by the project manager design for the work order will go to the project architect or project coordinator assigned to the project. That individual will review the package to ensure all documentation is acceptable and correct. If there's any need for revisions, the PC or PA will send it back to the PM design for those edits. Once complete, the PM will send it back to the PA/PC for additional review. When all documents are acceptable, the PA/PC will send it to their supervisor, who is the chief contract engineer, for final approval. This individual, Sarah Rodriguez in this case, has the opportunity to send it back to the PA/PC, who then, if revisions are again necessary, will send it back to the PM, and the iteration will return to the PA/PC once the design PM has made the revisions, and they will send it back to Sarah for that approval. When she's accepting of the documentation, it will go into a mail merge for a work order draft package. That package will be a PDF document that will be sent to the contract coordinator, Ani Hosferbeek, who will then compile the documentation for a requisition to PO and later on the notice to proceed. Ani, should she need additional revisions, will send it back to the PAPC for additional iterations, and then the process will continue as previously mentioned to the chief contract engineer. A new work order draft package will be developed and then returned to Ani for final completion. Once Ani is acceptable of the documentation, it will be sent to the user department's budget analyst for verification of funding. This is important because a project cannot be implemented without appropriate funding. The funding does not necessarily have to be encumbered at the time of this process, but once the notice to proceed is issued, it is important that the funding information is correct. From the budget analyst for that department, they will have a conditional to check and see if any funding information has been modified, corrected, or changed. If in fact it has been changed, again, a new draft work order package will be developed to reflect the additional changed or new funding information. If there are no changes, it will go directly to an additional conditional that identifies whether or not the firms being assigned the project have a signed agreement on file. This signed agreement is known as the Architectural Engineering General Consulting Services Agreement, and it's required for all firms who are going to be performing design, surveying, or architectural work for the city of Tampa. If the condition is met that the agreement has been signed, it will go through the work order cover package process in which a cover page would be developed, which in the end will comprise the notice to proceed. If the signed agreement is still necessary, prior to it being able to be developed into a notice to proceed package, it requires that agreement to be executed. It will sit in this AE agreement hold step until such time as that document is received. Again, this is an Ani Hosferbeek step and or the assigned contract coordinator. With the work order package being developed, it will be routed for signature. First, the chief contract engineer will sign it, and she is the head of the design and planning division for contract administration. She will send it to the user department director for final approval so that director can ensure that the project is still active or necessary. And then they will proceed that item once they've signed it to the director of contract administration, Richard Mutterback, for his final signature and approval. Once the director has signed the cover page, the consideration for city council will be assessed as a conditional. The conditions for city council is the firm currently under contract, and if so, is their cumulative value for that fiscal year $200,000 or more. If it is, the firm's contract or work order will need to go before council. If their cumulative value and or the work order individually do not comprise of $200,000, it will forego council, and then a requisition page will be created for the acquisition of the final funding for that project. The requisition will go to the Revenue and Finance Department for review and request to purchasing for the requisition of those funds. Prior to doing so, Revenue and Finance will have the opportunity to send any funding issues back to the user department's funding and budget analyst for revision and consideration. Once those funds are ensured to be correct and acquired and or encumbered, the budget analyst will send it back to Revenue and Finance for them to submit the requisition for a purchase order to the purchasing department. Revenue and Finance, will enter in the PO and attach it for final compilation of the notice to proceed package. Once the notice to proceed is developed, The contractor or assigned firm will have the opportunity to enter Trimble because at the beginning of the process, they were assigned an account and notified of such that they should go in and acknowledge that they did in fact receive the notice to proceed. Once they've acknowledged, the City of Tampa's eBuilder admin will create the commitment for the project for future invoicing. When that is complete, the process will be finished, the project will be built in Trimble, and the user department and the contractor will have the opportunity to review statuses and submit additional information as necessary. So now we will go through the formal process through the Projects tab again. We will identify what project, because it's created again in the PIR. We are going to, for this exercise, again, choose Process Testing and go to Processes under the Project menu on the left-hand side of the screen. Once they're in, you are going to select the Start Process button, and or if there are currently active AE work order projects, you will go to the subject and you can search the AE work order option. And if there's any active AE work orders, it should populate. So right now, everything is currently either in draft or completed or closed. So we are going to do Start Process. We are going to choose AE work order. And we have returned to the Project Manager's Designs entry page. So the first option has instructions regarding how you acquire the firm's legal name. Something to note, the blue banners on each page identify instructions for the various sections of the entry page so that you have directions and ensure that the information provided is correct and complete to your best ability. So we're going to do Test Company as the name. We are going to list the point of contact as Joe T. Tester. And we are going to identify that the user does not have an account. Again, this is a conditional that will be assessed in the process to identify whether or not an account needs to be established by the eBuilder admin. In order to add the new user information, there is an option to download an Excel spreadsheet that can then be later uploaded for the completion of the table. And I will just show you the options here. It has a general template or the visible line items, which essentially are all of the categories in the table that will download. And then once you're complete, you're going to import the file and it will complete the table for you. For this exercise, we are going to do manual entry. We are going to look up the company, and you can either enter the first portion or the entire portion of the company name. And we are going to filter and find the company name, and it will populate here. Should you ever need to edit, there is a pencil to change the company, or if you want to completely remove the company, press the red X. The company name, again, is already populated, but if for some reason you feel like the company is not present in that listing, you have the option to enter their name here. So we are going to enter in Test Company just for this exercise. Their FEIN number is going to be provided on the sunbiz.org website. So if you need that information, again, the link is provided here for the search of the company name. And then the address will be their corporate address and or their remit address. Now that is something to identify with the firm prior to entry because the remit address is sometimes not the same as the corporate address. The information related to the user will be populated by you as well. So we are going to enter the username. So the first name goes here. The employee's last name will be right there. And then their job title email address, and a general phone number. You are going to press the add, and it will populate across the top of the screen near the new user information tab into the table. Now, if you notice again, it says all items must be provided in order to set up the Trimble account. So please be mindful, even though there are no asterisks adjacent to these fields, if a new user account is required, please ensure that you input all of the necessary information. Next, you are going to upload the work order package documents. These include the work order proposal, DMI forms, certificate of insurance, the attestation affidavit, memo to file as necessary, and additional documentation as identified below. We are going to have the option to either drag the document directly into this field, or you can browse your computer for the file. We are going to choose General Files. So again, this will be the proposal we are going to attach, and then the option will appear for you to upload. You're going to select that, and it will appear in the field. We're going to do that for the remaining documents, and these are the formally required documents for the work order package to be completed. The memo to file also has instructions regarding when and why the memo to file will be necessary for upload by the user department project manager. The consultant selection form is the last formal document, part of the draft work order package. And once that is complete, you will have the required additional information for the particular user department funding the project, the project manager design for the user department that is assigned to the project, the contract coordinator assigned by the chief contract engineer, and the budget analyst required for the project. Again, similar to the new user information, there is a template download option as well as an import option for once that table is completed and the file should be uploaded for completion. The most important items are asterisked. However, if the project does involve a POETA, which is the funding source in addition or linked to the account, that information should also be included. The most important information is the contributions from those accounts. So we are going to put in the amount for the overall project value. We are going to enter a fund name, the fund source. And if you hover over the blue question marks, it will identify what that information is and how you enter it. So for the funding information, the first set of numbers in the account string belongs in the fund source listing, and that is usually 5 characters long. The cost center is the second set of numbers in the accounting combination and is usually 6 digits long. Likewise, the general ledger account number is the third set, and likewise, it is 6 numbers in length. The activity is already populated, which is usually all zeros. The project number can be entered, which is 7 numbers in length, and then the future is usually all zeros as well, 7 of them. Again, the POETA is the project number, which is usually 5 digits long. The organization will be the user department. And the expenditure is depending on whether it's a building, whether it's a non-building structure, if it's capital improvements or otherwise. So we're going to say non-building. The task is either construction, in this case, because this is a work order, it's usually for design, and the award usually matches or is included in the general ledger number. And so we're going to identify one of these numbers as the award. We are going to add it to the table. And again, as the initiator of this process, you have the option to edit any of the items added to the table and or delete them. Once all information is prepared, you can save the draft for any considerations prior to formal submittal. If you're all set, you are going to press the submit button. As the project manager, your initial step is therefore complete. When you visit your homepage, any of the individuals that are part of the work order process will see their process or their step in the My Processes table on the homepage. You are going to search for the particular instance that's been updated or provided. So the first step, if you do not see it in your table, one, it's probably not in your step. But if you want to check the status, you can go into projects, search for the particular project that you know is being implemented. So we're going to do process testing. And then you are going to, again, go to the left-hand side under the projects menu, search for the process, and there will be an automatic filter sometimes that populates that will list all active processes for that initiative. If in fact it does not auto-populate with a filter, you can go here and identify what filter you would like to apply relative to that process. So we're going to select AE work orders. It is going to filter, and these are all the either open or completed work order processes. You are going to find the current one, which is the sample we just created. And something to note is you can modify the table to show information particular to your needs. In this case, this table shows the current actors, the status, the step it's in, and the instance and subject. So in this case, we are in the account setup option because the project manager design identified that a new user was needed, and it went to these particular individuals for the development of that account. You're going to click on the instance as the eBuilder admin, and you're going to have this information to download and then import into the accounts management system to create the new user. Once the account has been created, it's important that these steps are identified and completed. The admin will need to check to notify the user that they have been added, and then they will also need to select the particular project that that firm needs to be added to. Once complete, they are going to choose the account setup option and take action. Their option will identify, are they sure they want to take the following action? And then they're going to select the project manager design, or they're going to contact the contract manager or the project manager should there be any additional information prior to taking this step. If all is complete, they're going to select the available user that needs to be the selected user for the next action and send them to the right. Clicking the Yes Account Setup option will move it on to the next user. The screen will update, and as you see again, the current actors have changed to the project coordinator. The instance is the same, but it identifies the varying steps of the process. You're going to select the instance as the PCPA assigned to that project. And you're going to see instructions again in the blue banner relative to your review steps. At any point in the project or in the process that you have any questions about what you need to do, first look at the blue banner. If not, feel free to contact EB Admin for additional instructions. You can also see where in the process the project is, and you will see a blue border around this step that the process is currently in. So that way you'll understand if it is in fact your step or if someone else has it in their court. Also, you can identify what's taken place prior to it entering your step through the project history. And finally, you can see who the current actors are. You will see the type of actor they are and their name. In this case, as the PAPC, you will be identifying whether the project needs to go before council, again, based on the cumulative amount for that particular firm and or the overall value of the work order. We are going to say, yes, the project needs to go to council. And while the project already identifies a company, the PCPA will also be confirming that said company is the one receiving the work. You are going to look up the firm name as the project manager did, filter, and select the company from the listing provided. You too can change and or remove the firm should any modifications be necessary. Likewise, the provided documents from the project manager design for the user department, you can edit these options by either removing them, downloading them, editing outside of Trimble, and re-uploading the item, or you can just see what properties are involved with the project. With this, it'll identify who was the originator, who last modified it, who edited, so on and so forth. You also have locked in is the information identified by the project manager design for this effort, as well as the funding information. You too can download the funding information, but you cannot edit. If all information is to your liking and all the documents are in compliance, you have the option again to either send it back to the project manager design for revisions, or you can proceed it as the work order package complete and take your action. You will have the request to ensure that you are in fact ready to take this action. You're identifying and confirming that the work order package document and all of its contents have been reviewed and appear to be in complete compliance for further processing. You're going to press the Yes Work Order Package Complete button, and the process will refresh, and the next actors will be identified. The Chief Contract Engineer will have the same view as the project architect or project coordinator, and she too has the option to edit in the window, or she has the option to return it to the previous actor, which is the PAPC, or she can proceed it as approved. Likewise, she does not have access to edit the funding nor the project contact information, but she can edit and remove the documents. Once complete, she will select approve and take action. It is important throughout this entire process that each actor understand that you should not save this step, you should take action. That precedes it to the next person. Now, the work order draft package is a mail merge step, and you will not see it in your table, but it will refresh and update. And once the work order package is developed, it will proceed to the next step, which is the work order package review. This view is for the contract coordinator on the contract management side, Ani Hosper-Beek, presently, to review the draft work order package to ensure that all documents are provided, and also to review the generated cover page. On that cover page, certain information will already be input. For example, the firm's legal name, the user department, the project manager, and funding. All the additional information regarding to the work order, contract number, resolution, so on and so forth, will be entered at a later time. Something to note. There are options throughout this process, once the cover page is generated, for individuals to utilize links for instructions on additional steps once the notice to proceed is issued and or the cover page needs to be signed. Ani, or the contracts coordinator, will have the option to identify whether or not the signed firm agreement has been received. Again, as noted in the process, that is conditional. So we're going to say no for this exercise, that it has not been signed. And then she also has the opportunity to identify what documents she has already received, the documents that are in compliance, and the things that are still outstanding. She too does not have access to edit the funding nor the contact information, but she does have the opportunity to download for file purposes. Once she has completed her step, if there's revisions, it will go back to the project coordinator or project architect. If all is complete, she will then take her action and it will proceed to the next actor. Now, because we identified that there was no signed agreement, the next step after budget verification will be a hold step. So once the budget analyst receives the request for funding information verification, they have two options. Again, instructions in the blue banner will identify whether or not they have made funding changes. If there have been funding changes, they again can go in and edit the table because they are the originators of the funding information. And then they can add additional information to the project so that they can update the table. The funding source, again, 5 digits, cost center 6, general ledger 6, and then if there's no POETA, we will add it to the table and we will review the contact information. Another element that is important to note as the budget analyst is that should you need confirmation, you have below under the work order package information, the user department and the project manager that you would need to contact in order to discuss funding changes and or information. Once you have completed your verification step, you've updated the table, modified it, and answered the question, you are going to take your action. It's going to give you a consent whether or not you've reviewed the funding information and it has been verified. Once funding has been verified, it will move to the next step. And because we identified that funding did change, the work order draft change is going to generate a new mail merge or new work order draft package. And it's going to again sit in the AE agreement hold step because the project architect or project coordinator did identify that there was no agreement signed. So this view is where the contract coordinator, Ani Hosfer-Beek, will have the opportunity to not only review the updated information for the funding package as provided by the budget analyst. As you see, the additional information has been added. She also has the opportunity to review the original cover page to see what changes have been made. However, this final cover page will be what's part of the notice to proceed. She will identify that the firm is correct. She will see that there was initially no signed agreement and will then be required to upload said agreement for the use by not only the firm, but by the contract specialist as needed, should the item need to go before counsel. Once that's uploaded, the only option is to prepare the cover page for further processing. The work order cover page is going to be a step again for the contract coordinator, who is Ani Hosfer-Beek. And she will once again have an uploaded version, a revised version of the cover page document for consideration, with the additional information, and identify any changes to the cover page that might be necessary to send it back to the respective user for editing. Once she gets the signed agreement, she can change this condition to yes, there's a signed agreement, and that is just for audit purposes. Initially, she identified that there was no agreement, and so there was nothing attached to the file. Once she changes this, it doesn't reroute through the process. It just simply says that now the document uploaded is in fact the signed agreement for that firm. She's also going to enter in a placeholding resolution number, and by that placeholder, it is meant if it's identified that the project does need to go before council. At the time, the contract coordinator will only know the current AE general work order resolution. So she will input that information, and also after discussing with the contracts manager, they will identify who the assigned contract specialist is for processing the item through city council. In addition, this contract coordinator, Ani Hosfer-Beek, will then be able to enter in the contract numbers for the completion of the cover page. For the purposes of a design work order, it's always going to be the fiscal year, a D for design, and then the actual contract number. The work order is usually the last 2 digits of the contract number, and then the NIGP codes are relative to the services being provided. Total compensation should match that as provided in the proposal, as well as for the basis for compensation. The work order proposal date will be on the cover of the proposal. And for this exercise, we will choose a January 2026 date. And finally, she will see the final funding information prior to the development of the package for City Council agenda preparation. Once she has done that, she is going to route the item for signatures, and it is going to go to the first signer, who in this case is the Chief Contract Engineer, Sarah Rodriguez. She will receive it in her court. Likewise, she will see what the draft work order package looks like in order for her to ensure that she is accepting of the contents that she's previously reviewed, as well as to identify and ensure that the assigned contract manager has been communicating with her project coordinator for final compilation of the work order package. She will then see there's a signature section where hers is the first necessary signature and the funding information for the project. If she is accepting, she will take the action, and it will automatically ask her to send it to the next user, which is going to be the project manager's user department or the director for that user department. Once that is complete, the user department director will then have the opportunity to review the package and sign, for they have the same view as the chief contract engineer. They will take action, and the last signer will be the director of contract administration, Richard Mutterback. And likewise, same signature page view, same information to view, and then he too will take action to sign. As mentioned, because the item needs to go before council, as identified by the project coordinator, project architect, it now sits in the OnBase hold step. The OnBase hold step requires that actions be taken outside of Trimble to complete for council agenda preparation and approval. Once the resolution or the item has gone before council, been approved, and assigned a resolution by the city clerk, the contract specialist assigned in this case will be identified therein, and that person will be responsible for uploading certain documentation for the preparation of the notice to proceed. So they will upload their documents accordingly, and then they will edit based on the provided resolution from the city clerk. They will edit the resolution number as originally provided by Ani during the cover page preparation process. And then lastly, the contract specialist assigned will upload the resolution itself. And it's important to note, because the system in Trimble compiles a mail merge of all documents previously provided, the only information that should be attached for this resolution step is the resolution itself, not the complete resolution package or the executed documents, but solely the resolution. For their intents and purposes and their use, the contract specialist will have work order documents assigned. The first one will be the draft work order package with a proposal, the cover page, so on and so forth, as well as the firm's assigned agreement. Likewise, they will have the contact information for the respective participants should additional information be required. Once they have done the OnBase entry, it has gone before council, been approved, assigned a resolution, and that information has been uploaded, they will take action to identify that OnBase is complete. A new mail merge will be prepared as a requisition to PO. And it will go again to Revenue and Finance for their consideration and preparation of a request to purchasing for a purchase order. Once they receive that information, they are going to enter in the resolution number. They are going to identify the purchase order date. And they are going to upload the actual purchase order document. They too will have information regarding the budget analyst should they have any questions about funding. And it is important to note, if there are any funding issues, the item should be returned to the budget analyst assigned, and should edits be necessary to funding, it should not be done by anybody except the budget analyst. Finally, the draft work order package will be available for their view as well. And therein, it should also include not only the updated cover page, but the additional information with regards to the resolution number, all the signers, the funding information, the project amount, and any additional documentation needed for the project. They being the Revenue and Finance representative, will either identify if there are issues with the funding, and they will again send it back to the assigned budget analyst, or if everything is acceptable, they will issue the purchase order. The NTP package will be created as a new mail merge. And then the contractor will then be required to acknowledge. So the contractor will come in with their new account. They will access the Trimble portal, and they will see that there is a blue or highlighted statement that identifies the attached document as their notice to proceed. They will open the document to ensure that all necessary information for the notice to proceed is included, and that document will contain the cover page with signature, the identified purchase order and date of execution, as well as have access to the hyperlinks for invoicing, for general assistance through the Trimble portal, as well as get connected to the updated DMI forms for payment that should be attached to all invoicing. They will also have the notice to proceed package, which will include the cover page, the proposal, the DMI forms, their certificate of insurance, as well as the resolution and signed agreement. The attached documents will also be available for individual download, which will be the resolution, the purchase order, and their signed agreement for their files and records. This section identifies and summarizes the project in its entirety with regards to who the contacts are, what the resolution number is for reference, as well as the contract number for invoicing. Once they are accepting of the document as the notice to proceed, they will take action in the Trimble system, and they will also attest to the fact that they are identifying this as a receipt and that they will proceed accordingly. And the last step of the process will be the development of the project commitment by the eBuilder admin team, which allows them, the firms, to invoice in the system. The eBuilder admin team will be tasked with developing and ensuring that all of these items are prepared and all these steps are completed, as well as identifying who will be the person doing that work. Once they've entered in, again, the asterisk items, they will have access to the document as well for purposes of developing the commitment. The commitment documents, as well as any of the mail merge documents, will always be in PDF format. If you upload Word, Excel, they will be considered erroneous documents, and you will not be able to mail merge them into a single PDF. So please be mindful when uploading documents that they always are PDF formatted. The summary page for the building of the commitment will entail the notice to proceed, the funding information that was finalized by the budget analyst, any new user information that wasn't previously entered, they now have the opportunity to enter, as well as the summarized documents as previously mentioned for the contractor. Once the project is built, the EB admin will take action. Oh, I forgot to select a person. And we are going to select these items. And now we are going to take action. And the process will move to the next step and close itself. And thus concludes the AE work order process. For any users in the future, should you ever want to see where the project is outside of your step, you can always go through the projects portal, type in the project name, go to processes, and view the item in this table. Or again, if the item is ever in your court for action, it will show up in the My Process table on your homepage. Thank you. Take care.